Okay, so obviously I'm Dr. Shayne Baylis. Soft tissue specialist is what I usually kind of go by. Chiropractic, physio. That's why I like to deal with soft tissue as much for athletes and performance. Today, basically Bernie asked me about what can I do to help with people to stay healthy at home. And I thought, well, now that we've changed into working from home mostly, not that we don't sit at desks every day or go to work and we're, in those types of seated desk jobs, and we're more sedentary than we are active nowadays with the jobs that we're doing. I thought working from home and how to stay healthy was a really good idea, especially when we're in these types of postures. So no further ado, posture. Everyone knows, oh, chiropractor, you're probably going to talk about posture. Well, guess what? We're going to talk about posture. All right, so here's just a scenario of what we're doing when we're either texting or sitting and doing anything like that. So here's a little kind of graph that I've been able to see with my my profession. We often talk about different ways in posture and how it relates to basically load being put on the body. So when we look at the forces that are increased with a head tilt. So if we have a 0 degrees head tilt or neck tilt, you're going to have a force on the neck at 10 to 12 pounds. Now the average head weighs 10 to 11 pounds for an adult. I know everyone's watching Jerry Maguire and saying the average head weighs 8 pounds. It's very cute, but it's 10 to 11 pounds. All right, so you're basically in a good posture when you're sitting up in a neutral kind of spine and a neutral neck head tilt. As you can see, there's a cell phone, so we're looking at cell phones, but sometimes you're at home and you have a laptop on your lap or you're reading a book. I don't know too many people that actually have their phone up like this and they're reading it, or, up like this, because there's people in your room going, what are you doing? And unfortunately, we are judged by a lot of things that we do. And I'm a chiropractor, so I can say, well, this is good for my posture. So I'm going to say that, but the rest of you probably have a little bit of a harder time to do that. All right. If we're looking at 15 degrees of head tilt, you're getting 27 pounds of pressure put on your neck. If you're looking at 30 degrees, you're looking at 40 pounds of pressure. 45 degrees, so it's even further down like this, you're getting about 49 pounds. And then 60 degrees, you're getting 60 pounds. So it doesn't double each time, but it does increase. And what's taking on the brunt of all that pain is that neck, right? So you have your neck muscles. And as usually we see, when we look down, we kind of have a little bit of a head tilt. So up through here, the upper part we call suboccipitals, or where the muscles connect from the upper part of the neck to the skull. Those ones take a lot of pressure to contract. Now, in my profession, we see a lot of people go, I have headaches. And where they have headaches, right back here, usually comes around to the front part of the eyes or into the forehead. So this can be from the posture that you're doing, really stressing out those muscles in there, creating tightness and strain in through the neck. So we always want to think about posture-wise when we're doing that, and how can we correct it? You can do it laying on your bed when you're having it up like that, but your arms need to be supported because you can't hold your arms up for that long. Okay, I hope that helps out kind of looking at that. So when we're looking at load capacity issues, so all musculoskeletal conditions usually have a load capacity issue or pain that kind of comes on because of these factors. So when we look at load, if it's less than capacity, right? So we have load less than capacity equals health. So, when people are getting older and they're just doing toning exercise or just doing reps, usually they're in good health and they're just trying to keep up with muscle strength, bone density, those types of things. Now, if load equals capacity, we still get health, right? We're not going over top of that threshold. So we're not breaking down, all right? Athletes want to be at this part all the time, right? They want to be putting out their maximum load and putting out their maximum performance, so they're giving their all and looking at, top performance, personal best every time. Now, if we go down the one below, we have load is greater than capacity. So when load is greater than capacity, that time where you picked up that case of beer and you weren't thinking about it, you just boom, and it broke, or you're an Olympic lifter and you're like, I got to make that 400 pounds, but you've only squatted 350 pounds or snatched or, cleans, then you might get in a little bit of trouble, right? You always see it on that where the back gives out and the guy falls over, those types of things. So you want to make sure that your load is always less than your capacity, so you're not getting the symptoms of pain and injury from doing something too much or too repetitive. Now, here's a fatigue curve that we talk about. Now, even sitting down can be a problem because you're still loading the spine. You're still loading that low back, all right? So if we look to the side here, we have the reduction in injury threshold. So as your body stays in that same load, the body starts to get tired, okay? And as the body gets tired, you're not able to maintain stability. let alone your posture. And you start to get to a point where you're going to reach where I'm going to cause an injury. Okay. And if I get to that point where it causes an injury and you don't take a break, you're going to have an injury. Pain's going to set in. And next thing you know, you're going to have that sore low back from what you're doing. All right. Also, the longer you sit, the more time you need to recover. So say I sat for 2 hours and then I got up and I got the piece of paper from my printer because I just printed something off. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I unloaded, did that. You have to unload enough for your body to recover. Why people don't go to the gym and work out legs every single day is because they got to recover, right? You have that delayed onset soreness, which kind of gives you an idea like, I'm not recovered yet. I need more time to do that. So we need more time to walk around. One of the rules that I give people is when I sit down for 30 minutes, I got to get up and move around for 5. So if I'm doing it for an hour, most likely you're going to get 10 to 15. If I'm doing it 2 hours, I'm looking at probably half an hour, 45 minutes. So think about that when you're doing things on how much you have to unload to get your muscles back to the same part that you're in. Will they recover a little bit? Yeah, they'll recover a little bit. But you go back to that load that you put on and you start digging a bigger hole, right? So even though you might not be at pain threshold where you feel pain, there's still damage being done. And if you keep digging hole after year, all the stuff that accumulates that causes pain will start screaming out. And then usually those muscles or those weakness in the links that you have. So say you have a weak hip flexor, that's where you're going to start exhibiting pain. And that's what we want to do. Now, if we look out to the graph on the side here, this is basically a creep graph, okay? They call it creep basically because it takes time. It's a slow onset. It's just like, well, I wasn't doing anything, but I picked up a pencil and next thing you know, my back went out. Same type of thing. It's just accumulation of repetitive injury or repetitive stress that's been put on. So we think about it as sitting. We come down here, we start sitting for a little bit of time. We get that stiffness. Then we get into that creep, which is plastic changes. Elastic properties means I'll go back to my normal length. I'll go back to my normal strength. Plastic changes usually means things are changing and they can be permanent changes, okay? So when we're looking at permanent changes, we're thinking about scar tissue or adhesion buildup, all right? Now, adhesion can happen from repetitive strain, long-standing postures like sitting or standing, and it can happen from trauma. So if you do get hit, the trauma is also there. It's where people usually equate scar tissue with, like if I cut myself, I have a fibrous tissue there, okay? So that plastic changes, all right? And then further over, then you get tissue injury, okay? So that tissue injury means you've gone past that part of the changes. Now you've actually caused damage and we're gonna have inflammation and pain. And it might be a lot harder to recover from that. That's why I always tell people, you start feeling that stiffness, let's get you in, let's check your flexibility, let's check your strength, and let's get you going. So posture-wise, while we're sitting, okay? Since we're doing more sitting now at home, doing that, let's think about it posture-wise. So if I'm sitting here, I can just bring this down a little bit here. I have my body position, right? I wanna have my shoulders back and down. I'll bring this back just a little bit. Don't need to see my face. Shoulders back and down, chin tucked in a little bit, okay? Low back should be supported. So we can use a support like a towel, right? We can use just a towel here, just to put in the back here. Sometimes people have better things to put back there, like an Eric's pad or an obis form, something that has a little bit of a curve. They call them like lumbar rolls that sometimes you can have there. And then we want to have our feet supported as well. Okay, so if you see in the picture, he's got a little bit of an angle here, which actually helps. If you think about it, if my feet were flat on the floor, what kind of length do I have in my calf? My calf is going to be tighter. And if you sit there for a long time, the body starts thinking, this is my normal length, because muscles like to be short as possible. So when I go exercise and I've used these muscles, that's when I want to stretch the most. I often see people, I go to play hockey and they're sitting there on the boards, they're stretching a half an hour before, they're going, okay, this is great. And as soon as that bell rings to be over, they're sitting there sipping beers and everything else and not doing anything. That's the time where you sip your beer in that groin stretch, okay? That's what you want to be doing to help decrease the amount of shortening of the muscle, putting pressure on our joints, all right? So if we look at open angles now, okay? So we want to have open angles when we're sitting down. So if I'm over here, I don't know if you can see my elbow here. So I have a support on my chair, right? Open angle. So you can see here, it's more of an open angle. It's not a closed angle, okay? Open angles here. My hips should be lower than my knees, all right? Higher than my knees. So your open angle here, you're not getting this here. And this can often happen in your cars because cars have a terrible bucket seat, okay? They usually make the the legs come up. Everyone's like, I have a truck. Well, take a look at your truck to see how much your actually legs come up. It's usually like an angle like this, okay? So it's like a bucket seat, and that just puts all the pressure right on that low back. And the worst part is you're not actually moving, so it's just that creep coming on again. Creep, 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 okay? We want our neck in a neutral position and our wrists in neutral position. So if we look at the picture here, we have our wrists here. They're a little bit slightly bent, but if you start bending them like this or going forward, you're gonna have a problem. A lot of people put a little bit of a pad underneath the wrist. So if I'm doing things like this, right, I have my pad that kind of goes underneath my wrist and I kind of settle on here. So my wrist is in neutral, it's not cocked up, okay? That puts stress on the nerves underneath, so like carpal tunnel, and it also puts pressure on the back of the ligaments in the back of the hand. I often see people with back of the wrist pain, either from typing a lot, playing sports, because they're often, taking a shot with a hockey stick, you're kind of bending it backwards, and that's where all the pressure gets there, especially if they, took a hard slash or they ended up shooting and getting jammed. One of those things, okay? So we want to have those in neutral position as best we can. Now, to switch a little bit, people are like, well, what's a good thing to sit on? And everyone's like, oh, I sit on my exercise ball because you know what? I'm challenging the core and I'm doing all that part. Well, that's a great thing to do to challenge your core too. And most people that do ball exercise, they do at the gym. It's not for 3 hours, right? They're doing it for a little bit. Now they have the balls with the chairs, right? Those things are pretty cool looking and things like that. Still, you're gonna be challenging your core a lot. So I have a ball over here, right? So if I'm sitting on the ball, it's all good. I'm sitting here for a while, and then I start going like this because I'm getting so focused on my work that I'm doing that I'm slowly bending, and I don't even notice it because I'm so focused on getting this work done, right? And it's not uncomfortable because the body's just fatiguing and it feels like I need to stretch it a little bit, and you're getting a little bit of stretch. But it's that creep effect, right? My muscles get tired. I start changing my posture and going forward. And that's not good for the back. Now, how many people do you know that as they get older, they start getting the old, bending forward like this, their head is down, their arms in front. They're not breathing well because they're not opening up their chest anymore. And they're kind of in that kind of Parkinsonian posture, they call it, right? Where they're kind of all leaning forward. I don't want to look like that. And if I'm reading my book all day, I'm gonna get this hump 2 here, which for me to extend backwards is gonna be like this. Now, one little thing we can do to test going, is this good for our range of motion, is everybody sit there and bring your head forward a bit, okay? Now turn your head all the way to the side, and how far can you go? Do it to the other side, think about how far you can go. So if I'm here, right, my head is forward, I'm turning to the side, that's about all I can do. If I go back into good posture, I sit up nice and tall, boom, I turn right over my shoulder, right? So your change in posture changes your flexibility and the pressure putting on the joints. Everything in our world is in front of us. We do everything pulling, opening doors. We do everything in the front. We're not doing anything in the back half the time. So we're losing our body sense and awareness in the back part of our bodies. And that's not a good thing overall. Okay? So everyone's like, what kind of damage, what kind of injury can I possibly be doing if I'm only sitting? I'm not even moving. And unfortunately, it happens both ways. If I exercise too much, I can get pain or injury. If I don't exercise at all, my body says, I don't even need this. So why am I maintaining these types of structures to do something that I only need to sit? I should be a snail. Okay. Anyways, moving on, symptom progression. So we talked about that muscle stiffness. If I can get muscle stiffness coming on, something's going on, right? Either I worked out too hard or maybe my body's thinking, okay, something's going on. Soreness, pain, intermittent. So usually it's like I get sore, but it goes away. I get up. It's only during when I'm sitting for 2 hours, It's not a big deal. Constant pain sets in after that. It's like, now it's all the time. It might not be really high, but it's all the time. Then it starts going, pain ramps up. I can't sleep anymore. Why can't you sleep? Pain disrupts me. I roll over, I get pain. You know what? And my bed's just not that comfortable because I bought that $2,000 mattress instead of the $5,000 one from Sleep Country, and I didn't want to send it back. All right? So we got to be thinking about those types of things. Problems that can be, from back pain or whatever. Disc can be one of the major problems. You got fibers that can break inside, like ligaments. You can strain the muscles. Bulging disc. Now, people say, well, everyone can have bulging disc and not have pain, but you might be the one that has bulging disc and you do have pain. herniation. So herniations can go right onto the nerve, causing that pain down the back of the leg. Some people call it sciatica, those types of things. Those things can happen if we're not doing good posture and we slowly do that creep and breaking those ligaments. Arthritis usually is the inflammation that goes on from that pain or the soreness that's in there, starts to eat away at our joints, which gives us smaller joint. And everybody wants to be taller, right? Who wants to lose height? Not me. I want to be tall, right? Just like everybody else. So try to maintain those good postures is really good. Now, muscle contracture. So if I'm sitting down all the time, what's being contracted? My psoas muscle, because it's shortened, right? And I'm not stretching after I leave home for work because I want to go home and watch TV and eat dinner, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting those stretching out and get those muscle contractures gone so it doesn't put extra pressure on my low back, because actually my psoas muscle goes from my hip here, right in my spine, down to my hip, okay? And that goes tightened, so when I stand up, it puts pressure on my low back, and I got this big arch, and I'm walking around like this because it's the only way I know how to do it now, right? And we have our sciatic nerve entrapment. What do we sit on? We sit on our butt, right? And what happens to be right under our butt? Our sciatic nerve. Yep. And so if we get this rubbing or decrease in circulation, it starts to make a glue. That's the adhesion I talked about before. It starts to make a glue. Now, the adhesion isn't stretchable or contractible. So if I can't contract, I can't be strong. And if I can't stretch, I can't be flexible. And all that does is puts pressure on our joints, our cartilages, our discs, our things that just maintain, our joint capsules, maintain our stability and strength. Not good. All right, what can I do? Okay, so people are like, well, I'm gonna be sitting at work anyway. I'm probably gonna forget. What can I do to help with the work? Take regular breaks every 30 minutes. Let's go out, have a 5-minute break, talk to somebody, get some water, you know, make some food, especially at home. I'm sure you got lots of laundry to do or something like that. Do that, right? Stretching in a seated position, okay? So we can stretch in a seated position pretty easily. Stretch in a seated position pretty easily, right? So best ones that I can tell you is about triceps, forearms, neck, glutes, and I'll go over those in a second, but it's best as preventative. If you're stretching all the time because you're in pain, you're probably already gone past that point of stretching being that helpful. It is still a good idea. I'm not telling you don't stretch when you're in pain because it does feel good. It does help with the muscles to relax a little bit, but overall, it's done as a preventative thing. So put that in your schedule as my morning warm-up, okay? So what I'm gonna be doing here is showing you a few exercises that you can do just sitting, okay? So we had triceps, and I gotta get off this ball because I told you guys not to sit on it too long. So there's my good core workout, okay? Ball's gone. All right, so we have triceps. Bring the tricep all the way across, okay? It's a good one with here. The one thing that I find people do is they let your shoulder blade go. Don't let your shoulder blade go. Bring that shoulder blade back, bring it all the way across and holding it right there, all right? We all can practice that right now. Other side, obviously, we're doing that. And I'd ask you, but you guys are all muted, but how long do you think you should hold stretches? Oh, 10 seconds. Oh, 5 seconds. Oh, you know, as long as I can. No, we want to do about 30 seconds to a minute. Minute is way better to do because we actually need to change the messaging system to the body saying, this is something I want to maintain and not just a momentary thought, right? If I do this, that doesn't mean that my body's like, oh, you need to move your finger like that. But if I do this 300 times, yeah, the body's like, okay, we need to do this, all right? Those types of things. Forearms, all right? So I'm doing forearm stretch, fingers back. I like it doing it this way, so I'm doing my forearms right through here, right? I'm feeling the stretching here. You can do it with the bent arm and straight arm. This does different muscles. This does different muscles as well. So if we're getting that a little bit of a bent arm, that works well, okay? Next stuff, so you probably hear chiropractors or whatever, like, okay, bring your hand goes underneath the chair. So if I have my hand like so, I can grab the bottom of my chair here. Here I go, grab the bottom of my chair so I stay stable on this side. And then I come back up and I bring my head to the side. All right, you're gonna get the stretch through here. Both sides, obviously with that. We go rotation, over pressure. So we push on the forehead a little bit. Okay, same thing the other side, right? Obviously forward like so, keeping in a good posture. So it's just the neck moving, not my upper back. Doing that, and you can bring it back as well. Usually the back one is where people suffer the most and there's a little bit of pain. So if it is painful, do it. Don't go that full range of motion. Go a little bit before that. We don't want to be aggravating anything that's already started, okay? Glutes, lots of glute stuff, right? So when we're doing glutes here, right? Everybody knows this one, right? You're sitting down, you're in a good posture, your chest is up a little bit, right? So my chest is up. I'm not just leaning forward like so. Here, you should feel it right in your glute. In the outside part, then I can bring my knee to the opposite shoulder. Okay, that's where we're kind of bringing it there. Same thing to the other side. You're gonna feel it a little bit different in the glutes from both of those stretches. It's just not one stretch there, okay? Hip rotations, huge. We walk in a straight line, right? So how many times do we actually just turn and rotate our hips outwards? Probably not that much. Yeah, you do turn when you walk, I get you, but not to the full extent that you probably do. Most exercise we're doing is mid-ranges, okay? So when I'm looking at my body here, I'm sitting in a chair, that rotates, right? So I rotate my hip like so, I rotate my hip like this. We call them windshield wipers, okay? My hips are getting internal rotation, so inside rotation, and outside rotation when I go to the outside. You should feel it right through the hips. Great little exercise, easy to do. You can hold those stretches at one point and try to get to the end ranges of what you're doing, okay? Hip flexor stretch. I don't actually have to move and leave my seat, really. I go on the edge of my seat, I bring my leg backwards, right? Here, and I can even bring my arm across the body, so I'm going across this way, so I feel the stretch in through the front part of my hip, right? This is where you should feel it. That's where you're doing it. If you feel it somewhere else, that's okay. It probably says that another muscle is tighter than this part. You better be working on that one. So evaluate that, and then there's lots of online sources and stuff like that. You can call me, whatever. We can look at what we need to stretch with you later on. Hamstrings. Typical hamstring where your people are like, get the legs straight out, like so, and you're gonna bend forward, right? Don't bend the back, keep the back straight, bend with the hips, okay? So if I'm here, you're looking at me here, I'm bending forward with the hips, not the low back, because this puts pressure on my back, and I'm sitting down, which is probably one of the worst things for just pressure in the back. So we wanna make sure we're doing that with the hamstring, and then the calf stretch, pretty easy as well. You probably, if you're sitting next to a wall, you can just put your, against the wall. You can see I have a box here. You can just push your foot against the wall there to get that dorsiflexion, okay, or the bending of the ankle. You can use a towel like I have here. We can just use a towel around here and just pulling it this way. So I'm getting a nice stretch right through the calf. Once again, bent knee and straight knee, all right? Both of them go up through the calf. You can feel those. Lucky for me, I have elastic bands too. So I have a band that I can use to put on that. You probably don't all have bands, but if you want, you can get some of those online. All right, so those are good things you can do just sitting down. So don't make that an excuse saying, well, I'm sitting down, I forgot, I don't want to get on the floor, people are going to see me, especially if you're at the workplace. So if I hear any excuses, I think that it's not a very good thing for you because you don't want to do it, okay? No excuses. All right, perfect. We talk about muscle strength and muscle movement. All right. So muscle strength and muscle movement, people are talking about Kegels. Now, that's a new thing. They're talking about pelvic floor stability. All right. So everyone's thinking about, I got to do my Kegels, especially for those ladies that just have babies. They got to do their Kegels, make sure that, they can keep everything tight and they're not worried about, jumping too much and peeing, right? That's always something that I hear about. But anyways, that's beyond the point. Maybe that's too much for this conversation anyway. And we talk about pelvic tilts too. So, Kegels is basically holding it in. And then pelvic tilts is basically what I give to a lot of people that have back pain. I usually do it lying down, less weight bearing on there, because when you're sitting down, obviously gravity is doing it, but you can do pelvic tilts into your chair as well. So if I'm sitting here in my chair, I don't know if you can see my back here, maybe I'll just sit here kind of thing and it's just flattening the back, going forward, flattening the back. Usually I flatten the back, feels a little bit better for about, 1 minute or so. Just holding it there feels like a nice stretching through the erectors, the muscles that go right along the spine and the back, okay? So that might be a good thing. If it's really kind of tiresome, I would recommend just laying on the floor, knees are bent, and then doing the flattening of the back and holding it there, okay? You can do it, 12 times, 10-second holds, or you can do it for longer periods of time with less repetitions, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so now we talked about strength, okay? This is some of the rehab stuff that we do for strength. When I tell people, you know what, I think I got you, the tissue feels good, the adhesion's kind of really decreased, your flexibility is getting better, and everything else, I'm like, perfect, we're gonna start doing the strengthening. And we use a system for our rehab called FRS, which is Functional Range Systems. It's by Dr. Andrea Spina, really great guy, really knowledgeable, always improving all his techniques and stuff. So I recommend anyone that is familiar with him that, you can follow him on Instagram, Facebook, all that different stuff. But anyway, Cars is something that we do as a morning routine. You don't have to be fully great at them. I don't have great range of motion in certain things, especially with my hips from hockey, but you're going to basically be doing your personal best, okay? So CAR stands for controlled articular rotations. So controlled means I'm bracing everywhere except for bracing everywhere, including the joint that I'm doing. So you're putting strength all the way into the joint. Articulation is just one joint. We're only moving one joint. I don't want to couple it with other joints because it makes us give us a false positive, I guess you would say, or a false success that our range of motion is really great when it's because I'm using my head, my neck, and my torso to get back there, okay? And the rotation part is circles. They're our biggest range of motion. We want to be practicing all of our ranges of motion because at times where you slip and fall, maybe it's backwards or whatever, you got to be able to have stability back there, strength back there, and be able to move quickly so that you can prevent injury even if you do fall, okay? So full range, obviously there's the circles because that's the benefit. You're going to get better range of motion. You're creating strength at the end of these ranges. Most of the people aren't training at that. Like I talked about a little bit before. We train in mid ranges, right? We do bicep curls at mid ranges, right? We kick balls at mid ranges because we're strongest there. We can get the most contraction out of our muscles, okay? So we want to put pressure and strength at end ranges, and that's what this type of exercise does. Muscle engagement at all ranges. So now my muscles are engaged in all ranges that I'm doing, and it creates strength in backwards, forward, side, in all the range that we're using. Fundamentals, okay? So I'm going to stand up and kind of show you some of these fundamentals that we're doing. When we're doing this, I talked about bracing the whole body because you're putting strength into it. So move you back a little bit so we can see me and you. All right, so if I'm bracing the core. My hands might be in fists. I might be pulling my legs actually together so that my legs are being stressed, okay? And I'm putting basically tension throughout the body. Now the tension throughout the body is always gonna be more than the tension I put in through the joint, okay? The joint's gonna be less percentage of tension, so my full strength would be 100%. In the morning, I'm usually doing a 10 to 30% tension, okay? Which you can see as the next bullet, all right? So the next thing we do is big circles, okay? So easiest one to see is big circles with the shoulder when I'm bringing it all the way back and all the way forward, and you're making sure you're doing it twice each way. The other one we do is make sure it's only one joint. Like I talked about before, if I do my shoulder and then I start really like this, I've actually just helped my torso get better so my shoulder can go there. Because I've seen lots of people that have shoulder injuries and they're like, yeah, that's about it there, doc, and I can't really do anything more, okay? So we want to not cheat ourselves with thinking that we're better than we are. We want to make sure that we're using the range that we have, and it's okay if it's not full. We just want to keep getting better at them, okay? So I put down, because you can do the seated ones, you can do the neck, the upper back, and the wrist. I'll show you kind of do sitting. So I'm bracing everything, right? I have my feet, I'm bringing them in. I contract with my upper body. I might be pulling my arms together. I might be clenching my fists, just kind of sitting there. And what I'm doing with my neck is I'm bringing it all the way forward, right? All the way to the side, all the way back, nice and slow. And I'm going all the way through that motion. Only my neck is moving. I'm not bringing up my shoulder or anything like that. And I'm going forward. And I'm breathing into my diaphragm. It almost feels like I'm doing an exercise. Now, if you think that after you're done this, you're going to feel all loosey-goosey, nope. You're creating strength. We're not creating length and this yoga thing. You go to see yoga for that, all right? You're here to create strength at all ranges at our maximum end range, okay? So we're doing that. So if you remember correctly, I put 10 to 30% strength, resistance in my neck, so it's kind of like I'm moving through air that's heavy and thick, and my body's doing about 50 to 60. It's usually a 20% difference, okay, from whatever you're doing, all right? Then we had our upper back, so I put my arms across, I bend forward, I go to the side, I'm going all the way back, and this. There's not a big range of motion when I'm doing this one because of my ribs. My ribs restrict my ability to move, and once they kind of come together, become close, it stops my range of motion. So I'm going to just go with the range that I have. So if you're going, around like this, you're not doing upper back, okay? You're doing the whole body, and good for you, but that's not what we're trying to accomplish, okay? Excellent. Shoulder blades, okay? So when I'm doing a shoulder blade here, I often have it, I'll stand up and do it. It's a little bit easier here. I have my hand against my side. Now my hand can move up and down. It can't move forward and back. So when I'm doing this, I bring it all the way up, all the way back by my shoulder blade going back, and then all the way down, all the way forward,
Nice and slow. I'm clenching all my bracing of my whole body. And all the way back. As you saw, my hand didn't move off my side because I want to make sure that I'm doing my shoulder blade, not my shoulder, okay? The shoulder is something that's probably my favorite one to do just because you can see it so easily, right? I have my arm here. I bring it all the way up. I'm bracing through my body, my pecs, my legs, my back. I bring it as close as I can to my head. I bring it all the way back. Now, if I come here, my arm stops. I need to turn it outwards to keep it going because there's little, they call it tubercles, little bumps that actually will kind of hit your acromion, which is some of your shoulder blade bones, and they'll stop you. So I turn it out, I come all the way back in, and then I bring it all the way to my side. So when I'm on my side here, as you can see, my hand is turned all the way out, okay? And then if I was gonna go reverse, my hand is still out, and then I get to that spot where I have to turn it again and then bring it all the way back. And I'm only moving my shoulder, nothing else, okay? For the wrists, if you want to think about wrists, all right, put your cell phone on your wrist. It'll really help you without making you use your elbow, right? So I put my cell phone on my wrist, it stops my elbow from moving, and I'm gonna be bringing my arm inwards, up, out as far as you can, all the way down, and across. You're gonna get a lot more movement with your wrist like this. You don't get as much going this way. So right here, I go this way, up, around, and down. You see how I don't get as much through there, but I have my wrist, my cell phone, so that I'm not using my elbow. So that's a really good one with that. Remember, 2 times around, you're still bracing everything when you're doing it. Now the elbow one is like this. I have my elbows at the side, I'm still bracing with my chest, right? I turn my hands outward so much that I'm trying to face the wall that way. So they call it supination. I come here, I bring it all the way up. So it's almost like my palms are facing over my shoulders. So I'm here, palms are facing over my shoulders, like a light beam is going out that way. And then I turn them around and I bring them out and down. All right. And through all these ones, I'm trying not to flex my fingers as much because we want to keep it in the same joints, keeping them straight. They are going to bend maybe a little bit. But those are the types of things that you can do sitting down. Real easy. There's a whole body, there's lower body, there's knees, there's toes, there's ankles that if you are curious about, I don't mind sharing that information with you or going over it with you as well, okay? So just a little bit of a summary of what we kind of talked about. Posture, right? Maintain a good posture to help you have longevity of your bones, joints, and muscles in the long term. Take breaks, right? We talked about 30 minutes, 5-minute rest. Go back to whatever you're doing. Stretching is a preventative thing, mostly after activity and on a regular basis. So try to make it into a morning routine. Strengthening in all range of motion. We use cars, okay? But using different things that you can do to make cars is a great thing, okay? Also, I always tell people, do a crab walk instead of doing just a push-up, right? Do something where you're going to pick up something like some logs or whatever and move the pile somewhere else. Maybe you're in a park and you're just picking up twigs and doing it. Do something unconventional where you're using motions that you haven't used before. That's what we did when we were, hunter-gatherers. We always did different things, different motions all the time. We're climbing things. We're falling down, we're sliding, we're throwing arrows, everything else. It's different all the time. And that's what we should be doing nowadays. So I hope everybody got something out of this talk. I hope everyone is going to stay healthy. They're going to respect your body and make that body last forever.